Hello, Branko. Could you tell us BC Cancer Agency's background on cancer research?
Yeah, BC Cancer Agency is a provincial organization and it's responsible for all cancer management from education, treatment, research. And it's now over 85 years old and it employs approximately 3,000 people. But about 500 people are actually dedicated for research. And it's got one big building and research goes from drugs to development of technologies for early detection. There is a major gene sequencing center, probably the largest in the world related to cancer. So part of that research also is dedicated for systems and procedures and methods for detection of cancer in the very early stages.
Can we have a little insight of how the DNA image cytometry was done? Like, what was the technique of that?
Okay, this is a special niche in this research, or this huge spectrum of research, but that one has been dedicated, as I mentioned, first to detect cancer of cervix, but later on also oral cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, and works on the idea that detecting using exfoliated cells from various tissues, putting them on the slide, and that's exactly how pathologists they take a look. It's objective. You have to train for many years, as we know, to well, I'm sure. But for, let's say, for screening purposes, where you have asymptomatic people, let's say for cervical screening, when you take on average, let's just give some idea of 100 women that are tested whether or not they have cervical cancer, at best there is maybe 1 or 2 out of 100 that has something to be detected. So as you can see, cytotechnologists who screen this first before cytopathologists is that. It's a huge subject, right? And to train people, you have to take, in our case, we take people from university, they have 3 years training. And then all their life, they look down the microscope and they are allowed to up to 80 cases per day.
Okay.
So it's it's very expensive, and to go and implement this in countries that haven't implemented. Now we started this 70 years ago, so for us it's easy to maintain that in a way, and we are very good at that. In British Columbia, in fact, it's reported to have the lowest incidence of invasive cancer and cancer death on Earth because we have population screening tests done. But if you want to do this, let's say, in a country that hasn't done that, to start that way, it would be extremely hard. Of course, now we have these methods where we can take the cells using digital images, train systems to detect and classify various cells, and then measure on relevant cells the amount of DNA. That's how this works. And it's now being to the point from the early 90s and through the 90s and early 2000s, where it was experimental. It's now routinely implemented in various countries. The best example that I can say is right now in China. They had a huge problem, still have it, because don't have enough people to do this, but in a fully automated way, it's becoming extremely cost effective. It's commercially available now.
So over the period of time, the system has evolved to this level that it accurately measures. So the sensitivity and specificity is very high.
Right. There are pretty good scientific papers now, independently verified with several groups, that measuring the amount of DNA in epithelial cells, let's say of cervix, or epithelial cells of oral cavity, and some others, that is the highest sensitivity at comparable specificity. And it is, just to give you an idea, we can train people using these devices roughly in a week to 2 weeks,
Only.
as opposed to 3 years. We need probably close to 10 times fewer people to do the job. But it's not, but it's kind of a job that it's extremely tedious, okay, that it's not taking jobs away from people. If you really want to implement this throughout the world, you have to do it this way.
In last 40 years, the technology has come a long way. So what is the future? Or what is the current status of this?
One focus has been, as I mentioned, in the detection of various cancers in the very early stages. One of these has been cancer of uterine cervix. Now, it started in British Columbia. We were the first where we were doing population-based screening of women to detect cervical cancer. And that's known today as a Papa Nicolau test or PEP test. There are various techniques now that, for example, HPV viral detection, but one of the methods which been now reported through the literature is the most cost-effective, is actually detecting abnormal cells by their amount of DNA in the nucleus, or what would be called DNA ploidy test. And that one, we focused, there were various groups in the 50s, late 60s, but it's a tough problem at the time. We started this research in 1985, and by 1990 we had the first fully automated system to detect cancerous cells in a spread of the cells on the slides.
Okay.